Hi folks, welcome to the channel. Last week I showed the vinyl LPs that I picked up on Record Store Day, though not from RSD itself, but from 2 record fairs I attended on that day. But as I said in that video, these days I tend to wait a week or two and then go online and see if I can find the 1 or 2 items that I really want from the Record Store Day lists. But this time, instead of waiting a week or so to see what I could pick up, I decided to go online on Monday evening at 8 p.m. when the stock went online. And I'd whittled my list down to 5 items that I was interested in. But I was initially just going to maybe look for 1 or 2 of those. In the end, within 15 minutes, I'd sourced all 5 and decided to go for those 5. As you can probably guess from if you've watched any of my videos, those 5 albums all came from either the prog genre or folk, 2 of my favorite genres. So I'm really pleased with what I've picked up. So let's have a look. So let's start with the folk albums. And this first one, I think out of the whole 5, is the one I'm most pleased to have actually got. Because despite its fame, I have never had a copy in any format. And that is Jackson C. Frank's soul album from 1965. This is absolutely brilliant. Why I've never got a copy before, I don't know, especially as this features probably one of the most famous contemporary folk songs of all time, one that's been covered a lot, and that's Blues Run the Game. A song I first heard on the Electric Muse 4 LP set. Brilliant song, but everything else on this album is superb too. And with this version, it's been expanded to a 2-disc set with 6 bonus tracks that occupy the second disc. Jackson was an American singer-songwriter with a very tragic and sad story. When he was a child, the furnace in his schoolroom exploded, killing a number of his school friends and seriously injuring Jackson himself. I think he spent 7 months in hospital recovering. And this left, obviously, deep emotional, traumatic scars. But using the quite large insurance payout that he got because of the accident, he later travelled to England and fell in with the folk crowd there, the Bert Janschers, Martin Carthy's, etc., and dated a certain young nurse called Sandy Denny. And I think it was Jackson who persuaded her to give up nursing and go into music full time. So we have him to thank for that. He also befriended a certain Al Stewart, who appears on this album on 1 track where he plays second guitar, and that was the first time Al Stewart had appeared on record. Also at the time he met Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel, who were in England at the time, and he played them his songs. Paul Simon was impressed and asked if he could produce the album, which he duly did. Following this, sadly, he hit a bit of a writer's block and eventually ended up going back to the States. When he returned a couple of years later, people just couldn't recognize him. His whole personality had changed. Didn't stay long, went back to the States. He married, had a son who sadly died of cystic fibrosis. That sent Jackson C. Frank into a further spate of depression. He eventually ended up in an institution. In fact, over the years, he's been in and out. He was in and out of institutions and ended up on the streets, living on the streets. Even later in his life, got shot point blank, which I think resulted in the loss of sight in one eye. Sadly, he died in 1999 at the age of 56. So yeah, this was the only album he ever did. Every song in here is excellent. I'd highly recommend this to anybody who likes contemporary singer-songwriter folk music. Absolutely brilliant album. Wish I'd got it years ago.
I've seen your face in every place that I'll be going. I read your words like black hungry birds read every sowing. Rise and fall, spin and call, and my name is Carnival.
Sticking in the folk vein, the second album I picked up was Horslips, live in Winterland 1978. Tell 'em about it, Johnny. This was the tour where they were promoting their penultimate album, Aliens. Now at this gig, they were third on the bill. Second on the bill were The Jam, and topping the bill were Bebop Deluxe. So they only had 40 minutes in which to play, and boy, did they come out of the gates firing on all cylinders. As it says here, they did so with virtuosity, velocity, and ferocity. This is excellent stuff. They didn't wait around. They just went for it, doing great songs like The Power and the Glory, The Rock Remains, Sword of Light, Speed the Plough, Trouble with a Capital T, King of the Fairies, and ending up with Darag Doom, probably one of their most famous tracks. Now this concert, I think, appeared on the massive Horslips box set that came out a year or so ago, More Than You Can Chew. But this is the first time on vinyl. And it was remixed and remastered by E-Rock, whose name appears on virtually so many albums these days, even more than Steven Wilson. E-Rock was obviously one of the great kraut rockers from the band Grobschnitt, but these days he's known for his remixing and remastering work. And he's particularly noted on here because of what he did with Darag Doom, because on the original tapes, the vocals were virtually non-existent. So it came across just as like an instrumental. But he went into the band's archives and picked up a recording of the song from 2 years later, from 1980, and transplanted, or demixed, as they say here, the vocals from that version onto the instrumental version from '76. And he's done a brilliant job. You wouldn't notice. So yeah, I was really pleased to pick this one up. Horsewhips have always been a big favourite band of mine. Excellent Irish Celtic rock. And now we move on to the prog items. And first up, we have this triple album from Yes, Tales from Topographic Tours. Yes did a release last year, I think, was it Live at the Rainbow, for RSD, which I picked up. This is from the tour when they were performing the whole of the Tales from Topographic Oceans album, one of the greatest albums of all time, I think. Don't care what the keyboardist at the time thought of it. So on here, you get 4 sides devoted to each of the 4 tracks from Topographic Oceans. And sides 5 and 6 are taken up with 2/3 of what is actually probably one of the greatest albums of all time, Close to the Edge, as you get And You and I on side 5, and side 6 is Close to the Edge itself. Excellent stuff. I think, from what I understand, the Topographic Ocean tracks are taken from the recent deluxe edition of the album that was released earlier this year. The playing, as you'd expect from Yes, is brilliant. Really enjoyed it. The only bummer is that the Revealing Science of God isn't a complete version. It's only about 14 minutes long. I'm not sure if that's down to technical issues with the recording or what, but still, it's worth having. As you can see, as with last year's RSD release, you get a faux sort of bootleg cover. All 3 records fit in one sleeve, which I'm never keen on, to be fair. And I could have done with at least an insert, if not a booklet, but hey ho. Pleased to have this in my Yes collection. And next up, we have another of the giants of progressive rock, King Crimson, with this double album, live at Penn State University 1974. In fact, June the 29th, 1974, to be specific. This was from the tour when they were promoting Starless and Bible Black. So it's the David Cross on violin, mellotron, electric piano, Robert Fripp, guitar, mellotron, electric piano, John Wetton, bass guitar and vocals, and Bill Bruford on drums and percussion. Classic lineup. This was at the end of a very long tour for the band, and it was actually meant to be a day off, but the promoters fitted in an extra gig, which I don't think pleased Robert Fripp too much, and he wasn't initially too happy with the results of the concert. I think he described it as tired, lifeless, and lackluster, because he was tired by this point and was just coming off a bout of food poisoning. So he didn't feel the band were at their best. But you couldn't tell from the results on this album. It's superb. You get Lark's Tongues in Aspic Part 2, Lament, Exiles. An improv, Is There Life Out There? Easy Money. Another improv, It Is For You But Not For Us. Fracture and finishes off with Starless. That was the performance, but you get an additional track, a version of 21st Century Schizoid Man, taken from the Central Park gig 2 days later on July the 1st. This has been released once before as part of the King Crimson Club releases, but only as a digital download, not as a physical copy. Though I think 3 or 4 of the tracks did appear on the Great Deceiver box set. No, but this is superb stuff, despite what Mr. Fripp thought. Must obviously be happy with it now for it to be released. But if you like 74 era Crimson, this is a must buy. Finally, we come to the album that was number 1 in my list of wants, and that is Hawkwind's 1991 album Palace Springs. Now, this is a live album, or mostly live. The first 2 tracks, Back in the Box and Treadmill, are actually studio recordings. The rest is live, recorded in 1989. And this is with a lineup of Bridget Wishart on vocals, of course Dave Brock on vocals, guitar and keyboards, Harvey Bainbridge on keyboards and vocals, Alan Davey on bass and vocals, Richard Chadwick on drums, and Simon House on violin, but I think he only plays on the studio tracks. Did I say recorded in 1989, though only released in 1991? And here you get great versions of Lives of Great Men, Void of Golden Light, Time We Left, and Damnation Alley. During the 90s and 2000s, I was obviously collecting Hawkwind albums as they came out, but at that point on CD only. And now getting hold of vinyl copies of the albums from that period is either impossible or very, very expensive. So it was nice to see one of the 90s albums being reissued. I'd love them to do that with a lot more of their albums from that period. So that was what I picked up at RSD, post RSD. Really pleased with those 5 albums. Each one is excellent. So just proves you don't have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and queue up for half a day to get what you want out of RSD. Or is that, as I said before, only because I want the stuff that nobody else wants? Anyway, hope you enjoyed seeing those, and I will hopefully be back with another video very soon. Take care, everybody.